Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, Lauren Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. I keep going back and forth on whether I want to keep talking about Nick Rekieta because there's a part of me that really doesn't want to. I do think the situation is ridiculous. I think there's a lot of things you can tear apart and make fun of Nick for and things like that. But at the end of the day, I don't feel as if that's in any way productive to my personal life, my channel, or what I want to do with my free time. It just comes off as if why would I make fun of this individual when I could do something else, enjoy my life, essentially. And honestly, the reason I keep making these videos, why I keep making Rekieta retardations, it's because of you guys. Because I know that there are a lot of people out there in the legal sphere, LawTube, specifically right-wing LawTube, people in the Nick Rekieta circle, content creators, people in that sphere. I think the vast majority of people are refusing to talk about this for the same reason that they refuse to talk about Mr. Rediker or Ethan Ralph for the longest time, in that at the moment Rekieta has a lot of clout, and a word from him could lead to an extreme influx of negative attention to your channel. You could see a massive decline in subs and revenue because you said the wrong thing to Rekieta. And I think that's ridiculous. I think people should be calling out Rekieta on his nonsense and really going in hard against what he's doing, against his grifting, and against his poor legal coverage. And I think that is what this all goes down to. It's not really about the nudes, about the Discord, about the fan base he's built up, he's distancing himself from his persona, the changes he's gone through over the past 5 years. The problem is Rekieta has never been a lawyer. He's never been someone who you could go to for proper legal advice, even though he managed to trick an entire audience of people into thinking he was, just because he technically went to law school and passed the bar. That doesn't necessarily make him a good lawyer. It doesn't make him someone you would go to for legal advice, as we've seen time and time again in this coverage of other cases, right? I've seen him say all sorts of things about Rittenhouse and about the Depp trial and about the Vic case that were just completely abjectly wrong, right? And although I talked about it, in passing on streams and videos and blog posts on my website, it didn't really take off until recently. People didn't really put together the fact that there's no possible way that someone managed to pay off their house 100% without a mortgage with his income. He had a small practice in Minnesota, barely took any legal work on, barely had any clients, doesn't seem to work at all. Where's the money coming from? And of course that's led us down this rabbit hole where we are now, where he's just how fabulously wealthy he really is, and how he is absolutely one of those people who have never had to work in their life. And as a result of that, it's just the illusion is coming apart at the seams. More and more people are asking the right questions, and I think Rekieta is well on his way to becoming a joke in the community, just like Ethan Ralph was before his downfall. When exactly was the downfall? I don't quite remember the specifics. Before people started distancing himself from him, it was the same kind of behavior, talking down to the audience. I can do whatever I want. This is my show. I don't do what you tell me. I'm not taking your unsolicited advice. You don't know what you're talking about, man. But they do know what they're talking about. The audience does know what's up. They do know how things are going to go, because we've seen this play out before. Nick really does think his channel is so big that his audience is so giving and so supportive that it's going to last forever. But it's not. People are there for the legal coverage. They're not there for sex talk. More and more people are getting turned off by what he's been doing. And this is all coming to a head in a way I think is going to lead to a spectacular failure on Rekieta's part in that apparently someone is filing a legit lawsuit against Nick. Now, I haven't been following this situation. I don't know anything about it really. Like most of everything I know about Nick comes from like my recollections of what he was doing like pre 2020, right? Like I am way off the Nick thing, okay? Like I can't tell you like what his recent shows have been like, who his guests are, like what he's been saying lately, like outside of a couple of clips I've seen from like Alyssa, who is doing the Lord's work, by the way, documenting this downfall. Like I don't know exactly what the specifics of this lawsuit are, but I can tell you that it does feel like Rekieta is in no position at all to fight it. This guy is like doing a ton of drugs, drinking constantly, not able to keep his own story straight. Like he keeps talking about like how he's gonna get this big name lawyer to represent him, but apparently, he released a statement today about how that lawyer hasn't like agreed to do anything, and how like they're just kind of he's just been sending messages to like the opposition or something. Like it really does feel like he doesn't have a good handle of the situation at all. And I'm curious if like this is going to be the incident that ruins Rekieta, or at least gives a lot of credence to the idea that like Rekieta has no idea what he's doing when it comes to like navigating the legal system, because there's been like indications of that for a long time in how he handled the Vic Mignogna case, how he's like covered certain other trials, and how he's like migrated from like allegedly running a small law business to being a YouTuber, right? Like this isn't something you do if you're successful at being a lawyer, right? Like I would say this about like people like Legal and a lot of those like left wing Twitter activists, social media gurus too. Same with the medical field. Like if you're on social media all the time, if you aren't actually talking to the clients or patients or whatever, you're not doing your job. You're not someone that should be listened to, essentially. And I've long felt that Nick is falls into the same trap, although like his political leanings are different. Like although it's like the horseshoe theory, right? Like although these guys are allegedly on the same allegedly on opposite sides, they're basically the exact same. You know, it results in the exact same thing in which Nick tries to push a narrative onto his audience, and they support him out of like a feeling that like, oh, he's the only guy who could like say this to us and like tell us like what's really up or whatever, and what's going on, and it just isn't true. You know, like people like this have no real experience in court. They have no real legal experience. They have no ability at all to discuss in layman's terms what's happening in the world and culture in courtrooms in specific cases. Like they just cannot do it. They don't have the talent. They don't have the ability. And like more and more, I think people are starting to realize that about Rekieta. And I think this upcoming situation with this lawsuit will give a lot more ammunition to that line of thinking. Now, that I don't want to come out and say that this is going to be like the end of Rekieta or something like that, because like this guy has like safety net after safety net, but you have to understand, like he's burned a ton of bridges over the past couple of months. Like he has burned through a lot of his goodwill already, and I'm curious if he loses his legal license through some like some shenanigans, like that would like destroy him in like the YouTube sphere, because that's one of his big claims to fame, is that he is allegedly a practicing lawyer, and like losing his license to practice law essentially will be a big blow to his reputation, and like people will refer to that when talking about him henceforth. That was the immediate thing that like the opposition came up when it came up with like the Vic Mignogna case, is that they assumed that he was not actually a practicing lawyer, but like years later, it might actually become true. He might actually lose his badge, like Phoenix Wright, and become a hobo. Like his wife is gonna take the kids and like move in with Drexel or something, and he's gonna be like living in a cardboard box. Like that is Nick Rekieta's future. It's starting to look more and more like. Of course, like we don't know the specifics of his financial situation. Like I've seen people speculate that he has like a big trust fund that's been like granted to him by his grandparents and stuff like that, and uh, he's been having fights with his family about it, how he like wants full access to it, and how he wants to like blow it on all on his like vacations and stuff like that. I don't know how true that is. I can't like speculate on that. We don't know enough to say with certainty what like the specifics of like what Rekieta's personal life is like. Like for example, we don't know if like he's the one pushing the degeneracy in the household or if it's his wife. Like the way things are looking right now, it could be either or both of them who want things to go this way. I am I keep leaning back and forth. Like I think it's a little bit of both. I think these people have been like surrounding themselves with poor company for their entire adult lives, and it's finally catching up with them. I think it's so disappointing because when Rekieta first came on the scene, I really was optimistic. This might be like the major turning point in YouTube discourse, in that we finally have someone educated who's able to like who is willing to be like reasonable and talk about like serious issues without looking like a complete fucking jackass. But no, those days have been long gone, if they ever existed to begin with. And now it comes like what now? Honestly, like what happens now? My guess going forward, I really do think it needs to be understood in like our, I hate to call it the sector, but like political our political allegiances. Like, I think those of us in this community, we really need to stop putting faith in like authority figures or YouTubers or like grifters at all. Like, it just should not happen. Like, there was no reason to ever give Nick Rekieta money. Like, he basically managed to trick people into supporting him out of like an expectation that he would help Vic Mignogna. And to a certain degree, I think that did happen. I do think Vic does have a very positive reputation in the community because of Nick's actions, even though that, like, you know, that he eventually lost the case, which, and I don't know, wasn't too unexpected, I would say. Not that he deserved to lose, honestly, but obviously, but like when it comes to like, you know, I think the what really mattered was like, you know, preserving his reputation in like the fan base, among the fan base, and like really building like opposition. And yeah, I do think in 2022 there's a lot more open-mindedness about the idea of like women lying about sexual assault allegations for money, right? Like the Amber Heard thing did a lot for that in that regard. And really, that's all Nick was ever good at, was like talking about this like double standard about like how women can get away with like abusing men to the courts. But I don't know, it feels like a dying mentality, honestly. Like, you know, people are taking steps to prevent it. Like, you know, people are getting good lawyers. There's people are being more careful about this kind of thing. I I don't see I feel as if more and more people are going to become more critical of what Nick Rekieta is doing and what he's talking about and how he covers certain situations. I certainly am. Like, you know, I don't even watch the show anymore, but like I'm casually following along. I'm casually talking about this. I'm casually like bringing up like what things I've noticed and things like that. And I'm not alone, honestly. I think this is very important that people talk about this. Never, ever trust a YouTuber.